I stared at my reflection in the polished elevator doors, brushing a strand of hair back into place. Today was the day I stopped pretending. No more hiding behind the name Elena Ward, the quiet, efficient operations manager at Grayson Industries. 13 years of meticulous planning had led to this moment. The elevator dinged as it arrived at the 40th floor of the Grayson Tower in downtown Seattle. Through the glass walls, I could already hear the tension in the air. Victor Grayson, the arrogant CEO who thought himself untouchable, had called an emergency company-wide meeting. My watch read 10:02 a.m. Perfect timing. Grayson had made a career out of exploiting vulnerability, swooping in to buy promising businesses, draining them of value, laying off the people who built them, and walking away with millions. He called it strategic restructuring. I called it destruction. I knew exactly how deep that destruction ran, because 15 years ago, he did it to my mother. Grayson Industries had acquired Holland Technologies, the educational software company my mom had poured her heart into. She'd built it from scratch in our garage, believing Grayson's lies about partnership and growth. Within 8 months, he dismantled it, sold off the assets, and left her with nothing but grief. The stress broke her. She died of a stroke less than a year later. I was 24, fresh out of MIT, standing at her grave, with a promise burning inside me. I would destroy Victor Grayson, not with rage, but with precision. I changed my name, changed my appearance, and disappeared into the very corporate world he ruled. Quietly, I tracked his every move. I learned to read the market, anticipate his acquisitions, and beat him at his own game. I built my fortune, piece by piece. But my masterpiece? This building. 6 years ago, when Grayson Industries was searching for a new headquarters, I set up a shell company and acquired the tower before they ever saw it coming. Now, they pay me rent, without knowing I own the entire building. Today, Victor plans to fire me, in front of everyone. But he doesn't know the truth. The building he stands in? It's mine. And the eviction notice is already signed. The price was steep, $120 million, 0 cents. But I knew Victor Grayson's ego wouldn't let him pass up the chance to secure the most prestigious address in downtown Seattle. He signed the lease without ever realizing that his bloated monthly rent payments were quietly landing in my accounts. Now, standing at the back of the packed conference room on the 40th floor, I watched him strut to the front. Victor Grayson in all his self-important glory, that designer navy suit, the smug grin, the slicked-back silver hair. Right behind him was his golden boy, Nathan Grayson, recently appointed COO. Nathan gave me a knowing, almost smug glance, as if I hadn't already predicted every move they'd make. They thought they were orchestrating a takedown. Cute. Victor cleared his throat, his voice artificially calm. "I've called this meeting," he began, "because we've uncovered some disturbing activity." His eyes snapped to mine like a trap. "Elena Ward, please step forward." I kept my expression unreadable as I walked to the front. Around me, coworkers fidgeted, eyes wide. Everyone in this company knew what emergency meetings meant. Public executions. "Grayson style?" "Ms. Ward," Victor continued with exaggerated disappointment. "You've accessed confidential files beyond your clearance. Acquisition models, board minutes, even private investor accounts." He paused for dramatic effect. "Care to explain?" Of course I had accessed them. Carefully, strategically, leaving behind just enough digital breadcrumbs to make it look like I'd slipped up. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," I replied softly, playing the part of the blindsided employee one last time. Nathan stepped forward with a folder in hand, flaring it open like a magician with a trick. "Don't bother lying. We have logs, timestamps, IP traces. You've broken multiple NDAs and jeopardized our upcoming deals." Gasps rippled through the room. Victor crossed his arms. "You've betrayed our trust, Elena." "Maxwell Corp. Pardon me, Grayson Industries has no room for disloyalty. Pack your things. Security will escort you out." He turned to the room with a performative scowl. "Let this serve as an example. We do not tolerate sabotage." The irony almost made me laugh. Victor Grayson talking about loyalty. This was the moment I'd been engineering for over a decade. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a sealed envelope. Actually, Mr. Grayson, I said, voice calm but razor sharp, I have something for you. Confused, he took the envelope and ripped it open, only to find a thick stack of notarized legal documents with one line bolded across the top. Notice of lease termination, full building eviction in 30 days. His face drained of color. And for the first time in 15 years, I was the one holding all the power. As Victor stared at the documents, his hands trembling and his empire cracking beneath him, I smiled. For the first time, not out of spite, but closure. If you want to see how he tries to fight back, and how I make sure he never gets up again, don't forget to subscribe. The next chapter is just beginning. One very specific clause was highlighted at the top of the first page. I watched as Victor's face shifted, from confusion to disbelief to something dangerously close to panic. Behind him, Nathan snatched the documents from his hands, scanning them quickly, his jaw clenched, the color draining from his face as reality sank in. This has to be a mistake, Victor muttered, voice shaky. Oh, it's not, I said, finally allowing the faintest smile to break through. Everything is in perfect order. I gestured toward the papers. That envelope contains legal notice of your lease termination, effective immediately. You now have 30 days to vacate this building. Silence. The entire conference room had frozen. All eyes were on us. The air so thick with tension it felt like it could snap. Victor's face was turning a deeper shade with every passing second. You can't do this, he growled. We have a binding contract. I nodded. A contract that clearly states the leaseholder has the right to terminate if the tenant is found engaging in criminal or unethical activity. I paused, tilting my head slightly. Would you like me to start with the fake shell acquisitions you funneled through Dubai? Or the accounting discrepancies in your last 3 quarterly filings? Nathan took a step toward me, fists clenched, but Victor stopped him with a hand on his arm. He knew I wasn't bluffing. The same tactics he'd used to destroy my mother's company, I had documented proof of them all. Then came the question. Who are you? Victor asked, barely above a whisper. I reached up, unpinned my company badge, and placed it quietly on the table. My name is Elena Ward, I said calmly, daughter of Isabel Holland, founder of Holland Technologies. The recognition hit him instantly. He remembered, he had to. Gasps rippled through the room as people began whispering, pieces falling into place. But Holland's daughter disappeared years ago, Nathan scoffed. I didn't disappear, I said, locking eyes with him. I planned, I rebuilt. I waited. Then I reached into my coat and pulled out a second document. And I didn't just buy the building, I added. I owned quite a bit more. Victor's hands trembled as he read the shareholder breakdown. Years of anonymous acquisitions, all traced back to me. It wasn't a controlling stake, yet, but it was more than enough to throw the company into chaos if I ever sold them publicly. What do you want? Victor asked, his voice hollow. Before I could answer, the elevator chimed again, and in walked a team of security guards. Not his guards. Mine. Security guards who had worked in this building for years weren't loyal to Victor Grayson. They were loyal to me, the owner. Ms. Ward, said John Langley, my head of security, would you like us to begin the evacuation? I let the question hang in the air for a moment, savoring the weight of it. Then I smiled. Not yet, John. I think Mr. Grayson and his son could use a moment to absorb this. But please, make sure no one leaves with any sensitive materials. We wouldn't want important evidence to mysteriously disappear. Victor's face was a picture of restrained fury, his fists clenched, his pride collapsing. For over a decade, I'd endured his arrogance, his sneering dismissals, the smirks during meetings when I spoke. I'd been invisible by design. And now he couldn't ignore me if he tried. But this was only the beginning. Phase 1, taking their building and unraveling their comfort zone, was complete. Now it was time for Phase 2. I turned to face the crowd of employees, most of them still frozen in stunned silence. Everyone, I said calmly, please check your emails. You'll find a new employment offer waiting in your inbox. Heads turned. Phones came out. Murmurs rose. My company, Elena Ward Holdings, is acquiring all legally sound assets of Grayson Industries. If you choose to stay, you'll receive a 15% raise, enhanced benefits, and leadership that actually values you. People exchanged wide-eyed looks. Several gasped. It was happening for them, too. "This is illegal," Nathan Grayson shouted, his voice cracking under the strain. "You can't just take our company." I raised an eyebrow and checked my phone. Actually, in about 2 minutes, the SEC will be releasing a statement confirming their investigation into Grayson Industries' financial activities. Victor staggered backward, grabbing onto a desk for balance. "You've been planning this," he said, voice low. 10 years, I replied evenly. "The same amount of time it took you to destroy my mother's company, Holland Technologies." His eyes widened. The connection was no longer just a theory, it was truth. And then every phone in the room buzzed at once. The SEC's press release had dropped right on schedule. Gasps filled the room, screens lit up with headlines. Grayson Industries under federal investigation, fraud, offshore laundering, misconduct allegations. Victor and Nathan stared at their screens, pale and speechless. I stepped forward, my voice rising just enough. "The building, that was just the start. While you were too busy watching me slip up, I was documenting every shell company, every off-the-books transfer, every single falsified ledger." I paused, letting the silence sharpen the moment. "Did you really think I spent a decade in your shadow just to take your office space?" John and his team formed a line between the Graysons and the elevators. Outside the glass walls, the press had already started gathering. And this time, they were here for my story. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind me, I could already see news vans circling the front of the building, satellite dishes rising like vultures ready to descend. Flash bulbs flickered below. This wasn't just a corporate collapse, it was a reckoning. "My mother believed in building things," I said, turning my gaze toward Victor Grayson. "She created jobs, empowered women in tech, invested in people. But you only know how to dismantle, exploit, and destroy. How many lives have you ruined? How many dreams have you gutted just to line your pockets?" Nathan surged forward again, but 2 of my security guards stepped in, gripping his arms with quiet precision. "You'll regret this," he snarled, his voice soaked in entitlement. "We have powerful allies." I tilted my head slightly. Had powerful allies? Check your phones again. Right on cue, another wave of alerts buzzed through the room. Screens lit up as the top business networks reported the rapid collapse of Grayson Industries. Shareholders were bailing, investors distancing, affiliates issuing statements. The stock? Already plummeting. "Loyalty fades fast when there's nothing left to gain," I said calmly. "Oh, and those offshore accounts? The ones you thought were safe in Zurich and the Caymans? They're being frozen as we speak." Victor's knees buckled slightly as he collapsed into a chair. His image, the titan of Seattle finance, crumbled in front of his employees. "You've destroyed everything," he whispered, almost to himself. "No," I corrected softly. "I've salvaged what was worth saving. The healthy parts of Grayson Industries will continue. Under new leadership, with better pay, better ethics, and a future." I turned to face the employees once more. "You have a choice. If you stay, you'll be part of something new, something that creates real value instead of tearing it down." There was a beat of silence. Then Sarah Chen, a gifted developer who'd been overlooked for years, stood and raised her voice. "I'm staying." One after another, voices followed hers. "I'm staying, count me in." Finally, Nathan looked around, watching his kingdom slip away. "Dad, do something," he choked. But Victor Grayson didn't move. His reign was over. And he knew it. "You'll be given 1 hour to clear out your personal belongings," I said firmly. "After that, neither of you will be allowed back inside this building." As the guards escorted them away, I called after Victor one last time. "Mr. Grayson?" He turned, hollow and pale. "My mother's stroke? It wasn't just stress, was it? She found out you were planning to raid the pension fund." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The guilt in his eyes was louder than any confession. "The employees you discarded? I said, watching Victor Grayson stumble out of the boardroom, his son close behind. They never received their full pensions. I've spent years tracking each of them down. Next week they'll receive checks covering every dollar they were owed, plus interest. That was the final blow. Victor Grayson, once hailed as the master of mergers and ruthless reinvention, shuffled away like a man with no empire left to rule. And Nathan, once so smug and sure, followed in silence. His legacy burned to the ground before it ever began. The next few hours were a blur. News vans crowded the streets, trying to break through the line of security that protected the building. Our PR team, prepped and ready, released a carefully crafted statement. Elena Ward Holdings acquires Grayson Industries ethical assets. All employees retained. Benefits upgraded. By nightfall, I found myself alone in what had once been Victor's glass-walled sanctuary, now quiet and still. The Seattle skyline stretched before me, streaked in deep orange and fading blue. On the desk sat a single photograph, me and my mother at a Holland Technologies picnic before everything fell apart. I picked it up gently, brushing my thumb across her smile. "We did it, Mom," I whispered. "We made it right." A soft knock at the door pulled me from the moment. Sarah Chen stepped inside, holding a folder. "Ms. Ward," she said, "the transition team is ready." I turned from the window, offering a calm nod. "Just call me Elena," I said with a small smile. "We've got work to do." She grinned. "They're calling this the greatest corporate takedown they've ever seen." I shook my head. It was never about the takedown. It's about what comes next. My mother always said a company isn't just about numbers. It's about people, ideas, and doing the right thing, even when no one's watching. As we walked down the hall together, a strange lightness settled in my chest. After 10 years of waiting, hiding, and maneuvering, it was finally over. The next morning, I entered the lobby, my lobby. The Maxwell logo was already coming down. In its place, Elena Ward Technologies. Employees passed by with nods, not to the analyst they once ignored, but to the woman who'd taken it all back, not just for revenge, but for restoration. Victor and Nathan would face federal charges. The SEC would handle that. But I had a different mission now. Rebuilding. My mother taught me success isn't just about profit, it's about purpose. And now, with the past behind me, I could finally build the kind of legacy she always dreamed of. Because in the end, the greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's creating something worth remembering. If you've made it this far, thank you. Not just for listening, but for seeing me. For years I was invisible, just a quiet name on an org chart, underestimated, dismissed. But I learned something powerful in that silence. You don't need to shout to make an impact. You just need to know your worth, hold your ground, and move with purpose. If you've ever been overlooked, if someone has torn down something you cared about, I want to hear your story in the comments, because your voice matters. And if this resonated with you, if you believe that the best revenge is rebuilding something better, subscribe. Not for the drama, but for the reminder that integrity, patience, and grit do win in the end. We're not just telling stories here, we're rewriting legacies. And maybe, just maybe, you're closer to reclaiming yours than you think. Let's rise together.